See if we live. Good evening, folks. This is Johnnie B, Creative Financing with Johnnie B. I got a special guest on this week. We're going to have a lot of fun. We're going to have a lot of information for you. Get ready to share. Let the folks out there know that we're coming live with some hot and heavy information this week. We got Dr. Stephanie Popular. I'm going to give her an opportunity to introduce herself. As you see, bossed up mom, realtor, business strategist, resource. I don't know resources, if we can say that, but that's probably not a word. But your resource management is what you want to do. We're going to talk about some options out here. We're going to talk about some stuff that's going on in real estate. We're going to talk about some things that she's able to assist with. And it's just going to be real exciting. So I want y'all to just prepare, open your minds, and just start thinking outside the box, because there's so much stuff that is happening right now that you can have advantage of. You just got to have those resources. You got to have that plan. You got to have that strategy for you. Dr. Popular, go ahead, take us away. Let us know a little bit about yourself and show us what's going on tonight.
Well, first of all, I want to thank you for this opportunity to be on tonight's segment. I'm super excited. I feel rejuvenated. It's been a day of empowerment. In fact, I just got back from a wellness service. So that wellness service was just full of excitement of just being able to de-stress and to prepare myself to be on your segment tonight.
Yes.
So I'm looking forward to sharing with, I would say, the viewers, the listeners, and in hopes that we can empower them and elevate them for their next level. So, yes, as you shared, I am a realtor here in the state of Maryland. Also, I have created a network whereby others in other states, like if you are not in Maryland, but you want to do business in Delaware, North Carolina, that we can help you to identify a realtor. Besides being a realtor, as you shared, I'm insurance broker, whereby not only can we get you the house, right, but we can also assist you in terms of the insurance, mortgage protection. Because sometimes
Ooh,
we don't think about that, whereby we buy the house, but what in the event that something happens, right? Would you be able to maintain that house if your loved one, transitions? So we protect and provide mortgage protection, and oftentimes individuals don't know about that. You mentioned the word resources. I would say a resource queen. I like to identify resources that can help each and every one for next levels, for the youth, for the seniors, any and everyone. I believe that God has fashioned me to be like a walking uh, book, a
right.
walking resource book.
And that's amazing. I mean, that's good because everybody needs those resources.
Mhm,
Everybody needs those
mhm.
strategies. Something you talked about so important right now. That mortgage insurance. We have a lot of folks out here. They're getting their forever home. They're doing them things that they need to be done, and don't think about what happens if something happened to me. What do I do, or where do I go next? So if you can let our audience know what is this mortgage insurance? People say I got life insurance, but explain that mortgage insurance to them.
Okay, so that's an excellent question. So, what I would like to say is that mortgage protection insurance is another life insurance product. Oftentimes, it's used as a term product for 30 years.
Mhm.
Oftentimes, folks are getting a mortgage for 30 years. Even some are getting 40, but and I know that there are creative ways that you don't
Right.
have to be locked into a 30-year or a 40-year, fixed mortgage. But the mortgage protection insurance, as I stated, is a life assurance product that is relatively inexpensive, right? That based on, let's say that we give an example, your house is $300,000. Of
Hmm.
course, right? You would have to, meet the criteria. Oftentimes people wait till there are pre-existing conditions, but
Hmm.
all in some, before you even purchase the home, you can find out, am I able to get this mortgage protection policy? And then with the mortgage protection policy, based on your age and based on certain
Hmm.
scenario, you may be told, well, your mortgage protection insurance, the premium is going to be $40, $50. And what we fail to realize or think about, that sometimes life happens. When my
Right.
niece lost her husband, when he transitioned, he was in his early 30s. We weren't prepared for that. She had just had a house built, right? I want to say that the house was valued maybe $500,000, but that mortgage protection insurance, right, in the event that there was a policy for specific for that, the beneficiary would have the means to be able to pay that house off. But also, what is important, right, that you now don't have to wonder how you have to replace that person's income, because sometimes we don't think about that. So we are on a
Right.
crusade to just overall empower and teach on mortgage protection insurance, which is a form of life insurance, but also the other ways that life insurance can be worked. College funding if you have children, or
Hmm.
maybe perhaps wealth creation, right? We have what is called an IUL, an Index Universal Life. Uh, all types of policies are readily available. It's not for you to just think about death, right? But life. There are policies in event that something happens to you while you're living, you will have the necessary supports. So to be able to maintain, because we are our
And,
greatest
and
asset.
and absolutely, and that is so interesting to be able to maintain, you know, to have that stuff to pass on that generational wealth to make sure that folks are prepared for those situations and stuff, and going through that and understanding that, hey, it's important. We never know when we're taking that journey to or transition to that next and something, some people, they like to test the waters. It's
That's
like, well,
true.
I won't need it, I don't know nothing about it, so don't worry about including me. Whatever you do to me is gonna be okay. But it's just a matter of respect of being able to have that available for you with that mortgage insurance, and it's a good product to have to make sure that that residence you have and you're leaving is covered.
That's
if
true.
that if your spouse or your children don't have the income to maintain that property right there, and how do we go about getting it, and what we're doing, even though we have life insurance, which is another avenue that we have to look at with that. And tell us, Dr. Poplar, when people look at that mortgage insurance, or you said IRLs.
Oh, I was saying IUL. What I wanted to say is that insurance has its many benefits. I
Right.
do have the insurance license, life and health. In other words, so the health, I use the life again for the life insurance license, again for mortgage protection, for college funding. What else? Wealth creation. I said
Mhm.
IUL, Index Universal Life. But I want to say also we have to incorporate the health license. We don't think about it, but we are our
Right.
greatest asset. If you cannot work, an event that you get sick, that short term disability can cover you, and it can cover up to 6 months. Right now, if you have long term product, if your sickness is beyond 6 months, then a long term product can happen or help or assist or support. We don't think, all we think on is, I'm just going to work. I'm going to work my business. I'm going to work for my employer. But life happens. And when we say life happens, when something you get sick or have an illness or surgery, that policy kicks in and give you 2/3 of your income. And I'm a witness. I've actually have
Right.
had to use my insurance, the health insurance. So I don't I want to talk interchangeably about it because we're talking about living a well-rounded life, that in the event that incidents, accidents happen, we can be well-rounded because we are our greatest asset. Our ability to be able to work.
Right, right, and stuff for it, and pass it on. So that insurance is so important to have during this time, and especially with so much stuff happening. We're just getting out of COVID, and some people say it's coming back within and stuff, and everything. But we want everybody to be prepared, being able to go to the next step of the process of being able to pass on that generational wealth. And I just want to add to that, never overlook the opportunity to make the difference. So that's a
Powerful.
difference you're going to make in your life to make it better here and go on there. But Dr. Poppy, tell us a little bit about your business strategies and the role that you play in that.
Thank you. That's
Yeah.
an excellent question. And I'm just so proud of you. I want to say I'm proud of you, Mr. Johnny B. You are moving, you are empowering the masses, and you've been doing that since I've connected and have met you. So
Mm-hmm.
grateful for our dear colleague, Sam. But as we talk about strategies, I want to say that the pandemic has really opened up opportunities for us to think outside of the box, but also to do the necessary things we know we need to do to win. So, one of the strategies that I have been helping for profit business owners to obtain or to do is to set up a not for profit organization. I've been doing that for well over 25 years. And I believe
Mm-hmm.
that setting up a nonprofit is essential. You can honor your loved ones who have transitioned, or you can build communities. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
the purposes of the nonprofit is for you to relieve the poor. That could be an option. Many
Mm-hmm.
investors, real estate investors, many teachers, many, I would say, theologians are looking for ways to improve humanity. So that's a strategy that if you have a not for profit, a 501c3 entity, that you could get houses donated, you can get land donated, you can do what is called cause related marketing. Your for profit can work in conjunction with your
Mm-hmm.
nonprofit,
Profit.
and now you can lower your taxes. You can also get the public, overall public, for support. That's one of the strategies. When I started 25 years ago, it was like pulling people teeth. It was like people weren't receptive, but now folks are understanding that they can do what the celebrities do, set up a foundation. They could do, what big entities do. Like NFL is a nonprofit. Hospitals
Wow.
are sometimes a nonprofits, universities. So what can you imagine if a group of you come together to say, this is what we want to do to empower? It could be, I want to teach financial literacy, or I want to help in real estate. It's so many ways. Or I want to help the less fortunate. Then you want to find a subject matter that is dear to your heart. So that's one of the business strategies that I'm now showing individuals and entities how to work the nonprofit, right? In a legal way,
Right.
legally, right? And how to maintain compliance. But another strategy that I may have as it relates to, business, overall business, if you have a for profit business organization, have you considered getting the different designations, the certifications, the MBE, the CBE? MBE stands for Minority Business Enterprise Certification. CBE, like the DC, the District of Columbia, and other states may call their program CBE, whereas in the state of Maryland, we call it MBE. But CBE, Certified Business Enterprise, where your business has provided the necessary documentation that the state would need to approve you. And when you get approval, that can open up doors as a minority, I'm going to say, business or contractor to be able to do business with the state, your local,
Wow.
your state. Then there are other designations that we can help with you obtaining on, on the federal level, making sure that you get the necessary documentation, or I would say the necessary processes done so that you don't have to just stay as a small business. I've chosen to stay as a small business owner, but with life, it's about expansion. So it's when you're ready, you're not competing with anybody but yourself. So, in
Right.
other words, when you're ready, I like to tell individuals, don't look at what your competitor is doing. In fact, don't even see you as having a competitor, because at the end of the day, you and that competitor could really collaborate. So don't see people as competitors. See them as, you might end up being my collaborator, or maybe there are some ways I have learned, and I have learned recently to, excuse me, to embrace the uniqueness that you are a nonprofit consultant too, you're a business strategist too, I am too. Are there some ways that we can work together, cutting edge? Now, not that you want to work with everyone, but being a business strategist, we would look at, let's look at some marriages that we can do. When I say marriages, we're talking about products or services. So,
Right.
in other words, if you're a lender, mortgage lender, maybe perhaps we could do a collaboration, the mortgage lender and the realtor, right? So, a strategizing, being a strategist, we would look at ways who would be the best partner for your scenario, or for your business, for your product, for your services.
Wow, and that's interesting. That collaboration for that, and that 501c3. I mean, that thing has so many different um, avenues that we can go down, and so many things you were talking about, and you were mentioning something about series, or something with that 501 designations we was talking about and stuff. Explain that to people, because I mean they might get a little confused. You said designations. What are you talking about
Yeah,
here?
so what I was saying, that the IRS, right, the
Hmm.
Internal Revenue Services, could furnish you or provide you your determination letter, but you have to do the necessary steps. You should have a board of directors, your president, your vice, your secretary, and your treasurer. So, depending on what industry, in fact, it doesn't matter what industry you're in. We can always create a not-for-profit organization that can complement. So when I said that, being designated, you receive a determination letter, but we have to identify what is the mission, what are we coming to do, how are we going to bring about change, who is our target audience, are we going to educate individuals, are we going to provide the necessary services? So that, what first thing I would encourage individuals to want to take a basic class, and we're willing to give a brief overview. Anyone who will come through you, Mr. Johnny B, we're willing to do, a 45-minute presentation on the whole overall nonprofit aspect and how it can help your for-profit business in or your community. But we would do needs assessment to be able to find out what exactly you want to do. You mentioned about the pandemic. I believe that the pandemic has opened its doors, or opened doors for us to just, again, think outside of the box, figure out ways of how we can improve the quality of our lives, but also how we can improve our communities, how we can improve our families. So, as I talk about designation, I was sharing with you that there are different certifications that you may be entitled to. It's a
Right.
matter of doing the paperwork. It's a matter of being able to say that my paperwork is in order. Whether you have a full profit or a nonprofit, whether you have a business structure that's a sole proprietor, a single person that is not corporated, but this is what I want to do. So we would do an assessment to find out what is it that you are doing, or what is it that you would like to do. Now, if I can tie in another strategy, because we have so many strategies, but I know
Okay.
that we don't have that much time, a lots of time. I want to say that another good strategy that you and I have actually worked on helping individuals is being able to see that when you obtain that real estate can be work. It doesn't have to work against you, but it can
Yeah.
work for you. It's an asset, and that you can. Oh, that's an excellent question. Thank you. I see Ambassador Melvin Henson sending a question. So I'm
Yeah.
going to answer that question. Thought about him today. He is an amazing 203K consultant, and we are grateful
Mhm.
for him and his life and his purpose. But as I tie up, I want to just quickly say this and then get back to the question that he has. The excellent question. One of the strategies that you and I were doing was helping individuals to pull out the equity right out of their homes. Many people don't know. I had to just tell a mother this morning that you have over $200,000 worth of equity. Why do you want to let the house get foreclosed and the house is just sitting
Ooh.
there? So we want to think in terms of that's amazing strategy. Take your one house and then be able to pull out equity. I told her, I said, think about it. Why are you going to let the house get foreclosed? So I'm now moving along. So I just want everyone to table that you can use real estate. And your Mr. Johnny B is one of the most, I would say, powerful lenders I know. You just worked out an amazing deal that nobody, major banks couldn't close, and you did it. I'm gonna
Right.
say that
Thank you.
again. Navy Federal. If I don't want to say the Bank of America couldn't do it, and you did it for one of the doctors that we know. You're awesome. So we want individuals to think about that, about the real estate aspect, and then another resource, Mr. Henson, Ambassador Henson. He's helping people with the 203K. That's another strategy. So when we think on strategies, I'm not incorporating all strategies by myself. It's some are collaborations. That goes back to that team that we were discussing earlier. Who can I partner with that it makes sense that we can work in sync for the
Right.
betterment of this individual or group? So the question that was posed to me, wow, the question that was posed, and thank you, Mr. Hudson, the question that was posed, that can you have a nonprofit without a board? Yes. Can I have a 501c3 without a board? That question has been asked by several CEOs even this week. And I want to say to you that according to IRS, the IRS needs to know that you have a board in place. That's one of the main questions that will be asked on your application, your 1023 or your 1023 Easy. Who is your board? One of the things that we do oftentimes, and maybe I'm now saying that we shouldn't, we just throw and put names on there. I'm gonna put Boo Boo down there. I'm gonna put Shaquika, and we know that Boo Boo and Shaquika not gonna assist us. Boo Boo and Shaquika, in fact, the moment you get a grant, Boo Boo and Shaquika gonna say, "Where's my cut?" But not understanding that the board has a fiduciary responsibility. That the board is to help to govern that you do the work, not Boo 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 Boo. Like I'm gonna say, Boo 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 and Shaquika. They just names, but I understand. I'm not gonna lie. I get it. Sometimes we put these names on there just to have names. But in our article, especially for the state of Maryland and several other states, the majority of states, that the state understands that numbers can increase or decrease. I'm gonna say that again. The
Wow.
numbers can increase and decrease. So in other words, if you had to put Boo Boo and Shaquika or let's say or Mr. Benjamin, I want you to think even beforehand, is this a good fit? You know,
Mhm.
if you again, you can reduce the numbers or increase the numbers. The IRS is just concerned to know who is on your board, and that board has a responsibility. So oftentimes, folks get our boards get the necessary insurance on the board members because they are volunteers. They're supposed to help you with the fundraising. They're supposed to help carry out the mission. That's an excellent question. I'm loving what Mr. Ambassador Henson is asking. How much
Right.
does a 501c3 cost? That's an excellent question, which it depends. I say depends upon the state because you have the state filing fees, then you have the IRS filing fees. It depends on when I say not the state, it's not only the state, but the purpose. For example, automatically,
Mhm.
churches have to pay $600, a $600 filing fee, and they have to have full disclosure. Whereas if you're doing a financial, let's say financial literacy, and you're doing other programs, educational programs, your filing fee could be 275. But for the
Right.
most part, I would say the range varies. I've heard the range of anywhere from 1,200 to, now you going, I wanted to fall out the chair when I heard this. 1,200 to $10,000. I said I wanted to slap myself, right? Because I think I have wrecked myself. When a lady told me her program, I said, I'm in the wrong or I'm doing something wrong. And
Right.
so I want to say, but then I thought about it that sometimes people will pay the extra for knowledge. So
Mm,
I just want to say, so I want to say roughly for me, ranges is like 2,000, and that's covering filing fees, but with all the extra items that we're doing now, then it can roughly you can feel comfortable if you're paying 2 to 2,500. But
mhm.
again, it depends. But when I heard 10,000, I said, "Wow!" Now that's an excellent question that Ambassador has come up. Does board members get
Definitely
paid?
paid.
Board members are non-paid. However, can we say however and
Wow.
take the bat? If the board is doing something outside, let's say the board is a consultant, that's the livelihood of that board member. As long as there's disclosure and then there is, no conflict of interest. So there are policies that we have to write, or we have to have bylaws. The bylaws govern the board. But for the most part, no, You're volunteering in that capacity, but that doesn't mean that you have to give away your expertise. You can say, I'm in this volunteer board member position, but this is my business. And this business right here, it call forth, this is what I do. So it's all about disclosure and understanding what your role is.
Right, right. And that's so important. Y'all getting some good nuggets here on this 501c3. Um, this is so important. We always talk about being able to own stuff or get grants or get money to build the block, build up grandma's house, to reestablish stuff, to get them state contracts, or to get that funding from the government for that building we're gonna make the affordable housing and stuff, because sometimes we don't have to qualify for the loan qualifies for us. What do I mean by the loan qualified for us? By providing this service and having this available, you get some benefits. I'm gonna drop something on some a lot of folks might not know. Do you know that a 501c3 gets first dabs at foreclosures? They
That's
get
true.
first dabs at bank-owned properties
That's
that has
true.
been foreclosed on. So a lot you don't have to wait till
That's true.
they come out and they start publishing and listening to stuff. You get that because they understand with this 501c3, you're probably going to make it affordable housing. You're
Yes.
probably going to rehab it and get those funds to make sure that it's put back in a proper possession, and state that it's livable. We're not going to take shortcuts. And guess what? Make that a home for somebody as we talk about home shortage. Dr. Popular was talking about so many designations and all of that information for that. And Mr. Henson was asking some good questions here, but
Yes.
the main question is, why should I have one? Do I just get it and get this and then I be done away with it? How long do I have to keep this?
That is a great question. If I could share this with you, just the
Mhm.
last week, or maybe 2 weeks ago, I had the opportunity to work or to be in, I want to say, in a cohort with several awesome nonprofit CEOs. It was well over 150 of us. And this particular organization helps with the funding. And so one of my colleagues had the opportunity to speak, and I was so excited and proud of her. I was invited by a CPA, Linda Taylor, And what we covered over that course of 3 days was about compliance. And we also covered not only compliance, of how do you keep your nonprofit in compliance, but how you can grow it. And so we all came out with the mindset of, you know what, we're not going to do business as usual. We're not going to put Bobo on there, knowing that Bobo doesn't want to help with fundraising. Bobo doesn't want to put up the resources, but also we're not going to just do business as usual. There are grants, and as they were saying, that you have to abide by the grant that you apply for. So if the grant says financial literacy or the grant says development, you can't go doing the opposite. You have to do what is stated in there. So we also talked about how nonprofit doesn't mean that you can't make a profit. And that's what
Mm,
oftentimes people think, oh, I'm a nonprofit, so I don't have any money. No, if you're a consultant and you want to do work with a nonprofit, that nonprofit can come up with resources to pay you as a consultant,
mm,
and or also nonprofits can have different revenue streams.
right.
So even today I had the opportunity to talk to a few folks. One, he was the fifth in HUD, fifth in rank in HUD. He's retired, but he shared with me, he said, although I'm no longer with HUD, I'm retired, I will get you the names and numbers, because there's a grant, CBG grant. He was just talking about that there are so many. Oh, wow, that's an excellent question. I'm going to answer that, Ambassador Henson. He said, can the grant writer include their fees in the grant? You can, but also oftentimes, if I could touch upon that, the grant writers, the proposal writers, I know they want to get paid up front, but I am talking to a few to encourage them. Work with us. I'm trying to encourage them because for the most part, that's time. It's no guarantee that you will get the grant. However,
Mhm,
time is money. But for the
right.
most part, all the proposal writers I know, they have written for big colleges, hospitals. I know. And so now, but when you get your paperwork and I would say in order, and you show that you have been doing the consistency of empowering and engaging with the community, all of that can help you in your evaluation. So that's a service, a skill that I would do sometimes really in my 20s and 30s, right? But I found that that's a service that requires complete focus. I can't do everything. I gotta hone in. So now I just have decided that the proposal writers I know continue a building a rapport for them.
Mhm.
So I just want to say that there are a class coming up on are you grant ready or how to become grant ready. That tuition is like $75. One of my colleagues, Miss Brenda, teaches that. She's a retired federal government grant writer. So she
Mm,
knows all about the funding. So I would say that proposal writers, some would set want set fees, but also they want to factor in a percentage.
that
So
is
it
so
all has to
important.
look at stipulation.
And we're just going to jump in here because we're going to put Dr. Poplar's information as it runs across there. Send her an email at stephaniepoplar@gmail.com so you can get that information that comes across. You'll have a phone number there as well. For Dr. Poplar, that's a resource that you can be provided for yourself. That's you're able to find someone. She's talking about grant writers. Who knows how to find a grant writer? You need that resource because once you step into that envelope of getting there, how do I do it? How do I build my 501c3? Do I just go to the IRS and tell them who's on my list of providers and stuff? All those need to be answered. All that needs to be done in a good amount of time, but you need that resource to have that conversation with. She just talked about a class we have for grant writing. I know, I'm gonna be honest, I was terrible in English. I was terrible. I wasn't the best writer. But I did over time find out that, hey, this what can happen, if I take my time and read and stuff. But like she said, it's time consuming. It's very you have regimented type of work that we have to have out here for that. And guess what? We're building legacies here. We're talking about building generational wealth here and buying blocks to where, we know right now money is tight. Money is hard to come by, but if we can get in there and get one of these state or federal grants that we can utilize through grant writing and stuff like that, so we can buy the block, make this affordable housing, leave that to our next generation of our young people to get through that. Because guess what? In this changing time, so many things aren't the same anymore. I encourage y'all, reach out, have that conversation, figure out where you're at in that process. If you want to learn, if you want to begin, if you never thought about a 501c3, call Dr. Popular. Dr. Popular, you talking about a 501c3? What is that really going to do for me? I know my church had one. Can I borrow theirs? No, you have to have your own.
Well, speaking of borrow, what nonprofits can do a MOU with an
Mm,
entity, a memorandum of understanding, and just
mhm.
elaborate on what it is, what this looks like. When I say what this looks like, I'm saying what does this partnership looks like? What does this collaboration look like? One of the things I may have touched on but didn't give the name, the I would say the wording or the verbiage, earn income. Did you know that a nonprofit can own for-profit businesses?
Wow.
So the only thing is that the IRS is saying that if this is unrelated business, then you have to pay taxes on that. But if it's related, then you wouldn't have to pay taxes. I was sharing with one of the business owners on yesterday a brief conversation we were having, and I told her, I said, "Did you know that if you're occupying the house, the dwelling and so forth, that if it's under your real estate, if it's under your nonprofit, then your real estate taxes are waived. Your real estate property taxes are
Mm,
waived." So she said, I never thought about that. And I just thought on that on a few situations where I've helped individuals to not have to pay real estate property taxes because they were doing the work. They were actually using the home. It was free and clear, but using at home for charitable purposes.
wow. And that's amazing. We talk about charitable purposes and charitable organizations for of stuff we have done. This is another thing that I learned about the 501c3. We have some folks that need some tax write-offs. we done
That's
earned a
big.
lot of money.
That's
We done
big.
got to the end of the year, and we know we haven't made that donation. People say I done gave my 10% in church. Yeah, that was good. That's what you're supposed to do. And
Mhm.
but where do we get those write-offs from? What do we do to help with those write-offs? The 501c3 donations helps with those write-offs there for it. And that, like I said, that's a conversation that you can have with Dr. Popular there, so y'all can understand how do that work. Will I get a 1099, or what kind of form will that come on? All those conversations are so important, because when you go to the tax guy, he's gonna say, hey, you say you got a write-off, let me see something.
He needs to see it. So what happens is, thank you, if I can interject. What
Hmm.
happens is you should receive a donor statement. Of course, the entity needs to know your address. Also have on record the amount. If you go to a Goodwill, some organizations give you the statement the same day that you've donated your clothes or money, but the majority of entities wait till December 31st to furnish the letter. But what you need to know is that making sure that all pertinent information is given to that organization, so that way you can get that statement. But also what happens in the event that you give this letter to your accountant, most accountants or tax preparers are not going to take the time to confirm, but they should confirm that the entity is a 501c3. But who will? The IRS. In the event that you get audited and you have put down the organization, the IRS is going to confirm that the organization is in existence. So you want to make sure that the organization is in good standing, but most importantly, have those statements as you stated. I just talked to someone last night. It seemed like you were here. Were you and your lovely queen here in the great state of Maryland? Because all the things we're talking about this evening has been talked about on yesterday and even last night. A young
Mhm.
lady has been paying 40,000. She said that she owes $40,000 to the IRS. And I said, wow, that's significant. Her accountant, her tax preparer did not tell her what she could do to lower her taxes. So, besides having a nonprofit, I believe that individuals should, if you're a wage earner, you should have a full profit, a home based business. So, I have partnered up with my econ, and I'm grateful for Dr. Keith Taylor, Tucker. Sorry about that, Dr.
Mhm.
Keith Tucker, Mr. Spencer. Uh, those two individuals have been very instrumental, and I have a website that individuals could go to. But the company actually teach you how to lower your taxes. And so you if you are getting a W-4, don't settle for just this double W-4. I had to pay taxes. This is the season to be well informed, and this is the last quarter. So we have all types of resources. We are developing a website that is going to share a membership base so individuals can get what's due to them and they can save and become wise consumers.
Wow. And tell us this, can with a 501c3, is it a certain amount you can write off with that?
Wow, that's an excellent question. I would say that every year, for the most part, it is in writing, like the Internal Revenue Service, the various publications are going to share with you what the percentage is. Like I would tell individuals, don't go above that 31% mark of donating. In other words, of write-offs. You don't want you made $100,000. You don't want to say that you're writing off 100,000, right?
Right.
So
Right.
it's about using the wisdom and understanding that you have to be wise in your approach. Now, Mr. Henson asked a question about a social enterprise. Yes, social enterprises. That is a unique way for you to establish your business. In fact, some people are doing. I want to say B entities. It's all types of different entities, but far as the structure, again, if you have an accountant, some accountants are going to disclose or divulge the information that you need. I would run if the person can't disseminate information, especially if they have done a synopsis on where you are and how
Mhm.
to lower your taxes. So
Yeah, and a social enterprise. That was good, Mr. Henson. We never, I didn't know about that social enterprises of what that call for when it happens, but I know that 501c3, I see a lot of business professionals starting to really get into the real estate game with that and understand why they doing it and what's the benefit, for doing that, to be a nonprofit and to kind of build your book of business or your portfolio through that. Tell me this. I'm a 501c3. I'm setting up affordable housing. Do I have to do that as long as I have my 501c3, or can I stop it and then convert it into just a regular profitable entity?
wow, that's an excellent question. Wow. There was a business that I actually had to visit in Detroit, and I mean, not Detroit, in Delaware. And one of the board members, or I would say the visionary, she was an attorney, and she wanted to dissolve it, but take the $1 million. They had $1 million. They had $1 million in the entity, and she wanted to just dissolve it and split the resources amongst her family members. You can't. So you have to donate to another nonprofit and within the
Oh, wow.
same. And a lot of folks don't know that, but you should know that. So that's the one of those compliance things that if we're not careful, they send your butt to jail. So I had to tell her. She was like, "Well, we won't keep the nonprofit then because we're not giving away this $1 million." She was gonna have to get rid of it.
Yeah, that's wild.
She was gonna have to disseminate. She was gonna have to find another nonprofit in the same industry to bless, to donate that money. So on that note, she said, no, we'll keep it on that note. So
Wow.
it's a steps to when you have to dissolve it and it has assets.
So we can't just shut it down, almost like disseminating or dissolving the LLC,
Yeah,
it's not
you
the same
can.
thing.
You can, but it's a process. Then we got to make sure the state wants to make sure you do all your personal property taxes. Also, if you've fulfilled all your debt. So it's just a whole as a steps of having to dissolve it. But that has happened where folks have dissolved, just as they have dissolved full profits, they can dissolve nonprofits. But when there's assets, you have to identify another entity that's going to take it. Now, is the IRS going to come? That's another long story. And see and confirm. I knew someone that actually had trucks and all types of houses, and I was just fascinated with what was said and shared with her and what wasn't. The lack of information. I was saying, okay, that's an asset. That's a $30,000 truck. I'm keeping
Mm,
it, but so
that's interesting. So with my 501c3, I can go buy vehicles.
yes,
Um,
because it's a business. It's yes, nonprofit is still a business. So that conference I went to made me think on some things that I'm so busy just helping others to form their entities that even the nonprofit that I have, that it made me say, look, Stephanie, you have this knowledge to make sure that across the board that you're now building, you're making sure that your infrastructure can be strong. But yes, a nonprofit we can be a profitable business,
right.
a for
And
profit business,
something else that's
nonprofit business.
so I'm on a board of a nonprofit. I pass away. How do that board handle that? Do they have to find another
Wow.
member?
So
Oh,
bylaws can change. Bylaws, we need to know the frequency of the meetings. Also, in the bylaws, it's going to talk about, membership and what is needed. But also, I want to tell you that what individuals are doing, or what smart nonprofits CEOs are doing, they're having it where, did you know your insurance you can will to your nonprofit, or you can have a policy and make the policy, right, you can make the nonprofit be one of the beneficiaries.
mm,
And we don't do that a lot. We need to, where an event that you want to continue the work, that you can say, I'm gonna give 10%, 20% to my nonprofit, to I'm going to give this nonprofit 20%. So now you can create endowment funds and still be. Johnnie Bazemore has established this fund. So can
mm,
you imagine that the work that you've done is still continue on? Because money
wow.
has. So we need to start back educating nonprofit organizations that you have these people that care and believe in your vision. Why not have them to be a part of the plan, like a succession plan, or have a plan of an event that something happens?
Wow.
We can
So
continue the work, the
and that's
legacy,
so
the
important.
mission.
Building that legacy, understanding that your name can go on for years and years and years through that, and having that set up. So you have to have those tools in place to make sure that you're doing that thing. This is good information, folks, on that 501c3. We always look at seeing how this generational wealth plan can work out. 501c3s, strategizing to get that, to get it done. We're going to put Dr. Poplar's number and email up there again. Reach out to her. I mean, it's questions. It's a lot of things that we're thinking about that we need to have in place when we're doing this. It's some avenues that we know and things we need to know that we covered during that whole thing. So Dr. Popular at 240-492-9559 or Stephanie Popular at gmail.com so we can reach out, have that conversation. I know somebody's out there thinking about investing. What's the best way to invest? How do I get to that next step? What am I going to do to make sure that my investments go through? First thing you have to do is to make sure that we connect, talk about what we're trying to do, and make sure we're picking the right thing. As she said, you can't transfer that, from it without having the stuff in place and making sure that it's doing what it's supposed to do. And the nonprofit seems like one of the best entities you can work with when building that generational wealth. The question that startles a lot of people is, it's a lot of work. I gotta find these board members, and I want somebody that is familiar with it. But you have to reach out to some folks that understand the business aspect of what you're trying to do, and what's going to happen in this whole process. Why am I building a 501c3? What is my mission? What is my goal? What am I trying to accomplish here when I do this? The accomplishment is understanding generational wealth starts through a plan. This is the first step of it. This is one of the things that we have to do. Dr. Poplar, I know you have something else to say to our listening audience.
Well, while you were talking, just my mind was going like, wow, I've actually had the opportunity. Are you seeing my light? Seeing my light
Uh,
on the high change, but I want to walk in the light. How about that? I didn't understand that. Wow, now my computers, my technology is speaking and talking. They don't understand. But what I want to say, as I consider how my light changed, I had some assistance from my engineer. But I like that. That's a nice, and my phone is just starting to talk on its own. But what I wanted to say is, I had the opportunity to do a real estate transaction with the nonprofit. So we had to do a resolution. And the board had to sign the documentation. So it was just unique to work with the title company several years ago and see the process of how that goes about. Yes.
wow.
So I wanted to say that also, when it comes to the nonprofit, you naming the nonprofit that you would like to will or put down as a beneficiary, you have to have the nonprofit EIN number, employee identification number. So
Wow.
it's so many unique ways that I've seen and witnessed. And we just want to, if we know, like you hear the saying, if you know better, do better. So it's now that we know better. Therefore, we are going to do better. 2025 is coming, and we've seen so many calamities in 2024. Whether we've been affected or we know of others, so we just want to live fruitful lives, but most importantly, make sure that we do the things that we know that can be done, and we spread the knowledge.
For it, and that is so important. Now I want to just take an opportunity right now to thank Dr. Popular for coming on the show this evening, providing us with that knowledge. As I said, reach out to Dr. Popular if you have any questions, so y'all can have that conversations, collaborate, and get a plan in place. If you're considering it, if you're thinking about it, you can always work with that and get it done. I want to go ahead and say, Dr. Pablo, if you have any closing remarks for us, please do that.
Well, here are the closing remarks. The best is before you. The best is before you. So we have all types of resources. We have the membership, the She Wins University. Men are welcome to be a part of it. We have other entities that we have, the We Care Baltimore. We have Seat Pleasant CDC, and these initiatives, or I would say nonprofits, we have various programs and partners that can assist. Earlier, we had heard from Henson, or the question, Ambassador Henson, and that in itself, he himself is powerful as far as the 203Ks, an awesome strategy for the first time home buyer. So I want to encourage all your listeners, if they want a free 15-minute consult, we can furnish that. They can text to 240-659-4299, and we will furnish that. All they have to mention that they heard the segment. And lastly, I just want to say, walk in the light. It's ironic that my engineer from my segment did something to now where you see the light. So I'm going to close and just say, walk in the light. In other words, walk in the knowledge that you have been provided on this evening. And I want to say also, thank you, Mr. Johnnie B, for the opportunity to be on your segment on this evening.
Oh man, we thank you so much. And as y'all know, this creative financing with JB, we always going to provide you with resources and strategies to change your life as we move forward into our new legacy of generational wealth. Y'all have a good night. We'll see you next Tuesday at 7 to 8. Tell a friend, let them know to come on out, and we're going to have some good information for y'all. Good night, folks.